Welcome to a special episode of Talent Hunters. Today, we're rounding up the best insights from 10 incredible guests who've weathered every disruption the recruiting world has thrown their way. From mastering storytelling to leveraging technology the right way, these experts share the secret sauce that's kept them at the top of their game. Let's dive into the key takeaways that make the best recruiters stand out, year after year.
Welcome back to Talent Hunters, powered by MRI Network, where each week we talk with the world's top talent strategists and executive recruiters. If you want to build talented teams that drive your company to big goals and big growth, then this podcast is for you. And now, let's join the conversation with today's episode of Talent Hunters.
I mean, there's two different types of candidates, and Vince, you know this too. There's the type of candidate who's just looking for a job, and maybe they just want more money, and it depends on the economy. They feel like they're just looking to win something. And then there's the candidate who actually wants something that's a lot more, it's bigger than that they're looking for the right role. They're looking to be with the right team. They're looking to maybe build their career. They're looking to be around smart people. They're looking not to be bored. I enjoy getting into it with those folks and understanding what they're looking for, where they want to go. I end up being their recruiter psychologist. Anyone who I've placed has probably spent at least an hour or two with me on the phone multiple times before they end up taking the job anyhow.
Isn't it fun when you get a candidate at the end of the process and you can tell the difference when they say thank you?
Absolutely. Yeah.
To me, that's the most fulfilling part of a candidate is when you've invested into them, they've invested into them, and you provide them with a solution that they're excited about. And that's when you feel that heartfelt thank you from them. Do you agree with that?
Oh, the best thank yous I've gotten are the people who originally I truly headhunted in the first place, who weren't really looking for a job, who when we really got into it, were really excited about these new roles, but they were just so afraid to do it. And they got into these roles and they since have been promoted or stayed with the new company forever and they love it. And those are the ones I hear from the most that are the extra thankful for making the move. I'll tell you that.
Those people, the hard to find people in today's days, times and so forth of people not picking up the telephone, what's the magic? What's the magic of being able to find that nugget of gold in a candidate out there?
They're out there. You have to be consistent. And for every company that treats people well, there's another 5 companies that don't. And there's people who now know that. Their eyes are open. And they know that there's more opportunity out there. So if you stay in front of them and you keep going at it and you keep doing it and you're consistent and you go at them from all those avenues that we discussed earlier, then you round people up.
So you've been doing this for 20 years, whether it's construction or whatever. What makes SearchMax different than every other recruiter out there today?
Well, SearchMax is doing business the old-fashioned way, where SearchMax, and I know you'll appreciate this, Vince, is legitimately headhunting. SearchMax goes about their business differently. I've had the privilege of being inside of other recruiting agencies that are not part of this Management Recruiters Network, but are been in the business for quite a long time. We don't look for folks to come to us. We are actively headhunting. I don't believe that a company should be spending 25%, 30% of someone's first year's base salary to send us a check to throw an ad out there and go through the resumes of the people who are otherwise leaving their jobs because they were unhappy or they were passed up for a promotion. People should be using this firm specifically because they want a headhunter. They want someone to go out there and they want somebody to cold call someone until they get them on the phone and they get them to listen to the opportunity and they can articulate as to why they should listen to that opportunity. And they should be able to articulate as to why they should maybe take this thing seriously and go home and look at the company and then make a decision on whether or not they really are serious about making a career move. So that's what we do. Not all recruiting, everybody calls themselves a recruiting firm these days, but a lot of these places are staffing people, which means putting people into spots. We're unabashedly taking people that otherwise weren't looking for a spot. We want the best of the best, the best available. And those are the people we want to put in spots.
I love that. I love that. I hope you put that somewhere in your marketing equipment and stuff like that, because we've lost sight of that. To your point, in today's world, everybody's using technology to find people. Everybody's looking for those people to come to them. They're looking for the low-hanging fruit and so forth. And to your point, that's not what this business is built around. You can make money doing that, but you're not
Sure.
going to build the relationships that you've built with your clients. And I love that, Adam. Congratulations.
One of the things I love about our industry is that I would say we're information brokers more than anything else. And so if you can disseminate and extrapolate all of the key information that you need from banking executives, banking employees, the people that you work with, and then in turn share that with your candidate pool, target candidates in the market, to demonstrate that you understand the things that they face on a day-to-day, week-to-week, month-to-month, year-to-year challenge. It allows us to earn the trust of the people in the industry to come to us to work with us.
That's very well said. Very well said. Why should a bank or lending institution that you have never worked with before listen to you?
Because I know the challenges that they face. And I also know that each individual institution is different in its own right and faces similar challenges as others, but might be a little bit different. And from a recruiting perspective or a human capital aspect, is you have to approach their target candidate pool or market with the story that they need to tell, whatever that story is. We, as recruiters, are storytellers. And the best way to tell the story is to have the most information, to be armed to tell the best story that will resonate with either, the target pool of candidates that we're looking for, or the next institution that we're going to work with. We have to understand the challenges they face and how to solve them in a human capital manner.
So it's about asking great questions, listening, and putting that into your story.
100%. Those are the key ingredients. And the better you listen, the better questions you ask, the more information you will get. There, in turn, the better story you're going to tell.
You've got to use the technology, and I'll just use example, texting, Zoom, we can even talk about, Zoom info and data collectors and things like that. You've got to use that technology to supplement your business, and not kind of cannibalize, the other things that you've always done. The phone and face-to-face human connection, there's nothing that replaces that. There are a lot of things that we can do that are going to help us for the in-betweens. When I first started recruiting, and this is actually really cool to kind of tell like this story. When I first started recruiting with my uncle, this is even before we had ATS systems, So whenever we would get a new job, I had bookshelves behind me with boxes of resumes. And so if we needed an engineering manager in Texas, I'm going to go to the engineering manager box, and I'm going to go through and call everybody. And, we've got a resume and then a sheet that we just write notes on. And then obviously you see how that's been, digitized and what have you, with our PCRs and with our Bullhorn and with our applicant tracking softwares that make things a lot easier for us to access that information and then get to it. But you can't just rely on technology to get you to where you need to go. It all goes back to the fundamentals. I use technology every day. I do things every day now that I didn't do 10 years ago. I used to I used to make 70, cold calls a day kind of when I first got started. I don't even know if that's possible now. When I made 70 cold calls, 50 people would pick up the phone. Even if I had gatekeepers, 50 people would pick up the phone. And then you talk about technology and the, how much it helps us. Well, I mean, the caller ID stuff probably doesn't help us, quite as much. And so you definitely do got to find other ways to do it. And so if I'm setting up interviews and things like that, I spend my day like this. I really do. But talking on the phone, human to human connection, human to human interaction, there is no replacing that. And so we can use all of these different tools. I mean, at the end of the day, I think technology, a lot of this technology, I mean, it kind of adheres a little more to our tactics, but we still kind of have the same overall strategies and, let's just say, overall recruiting disposition. I still do it the same way I did it 13 years ago. Do I have different tools that I use to help me get there? Is it a little different in the day-to-day process? Yes. But at its core, I still do the things that I learned in Philadelphia, as a 24-year-old with a better hairline, and so forth to this day.
So let's capsulate that, because I think the message is incredible. Technology is a tool that complements the phone and the face-to-face.
Exactly.
It isn't the reverse. It isn't technology is what I do all day long, and then I get on the phone or I go face-to-face. It's absolutely, technology is a tool. I'm encapsulating what you just said. Technology is your tool that complements and inspires and helps the phone and the face-to-face, because the phone and the face-to-face is what's making you money.
Absolutely. If you're on a ship going across the ocean, technology is not the ship. Technology is the GPS that we have. Technology is the new electric rowers, so that you don't necessarily have all this manpower, but it will never be the ship.
Having a process makes the difference in getting the candidate that is actually going to be successful versus just getting a live body. And there have been some that have taken that to heart and have changed their processes because of the recommendations from the experiences we've had with good and bad processes. So if I have someone who will take that leap of faith and I have someone that will follow a process, we're pretty successful with them. And then it's on us. Then it's on us to find the right talent for them. Not just to shove the first person we find in their face and try to convince them at all costs to hire them, but to go through a diligent process with speed and efficiency to find them the right candidates so that they have choice. And I'm a big believer in choice. One candidate is not a choice, it's a decision. 2 or 3 or 4 is a choice. And if you give them that type of choice and you make the decision difficult for them, sit back and relax, because the placement's going to happen.
Good call. Now let's flip it.
Yeah.
Because one of the struggles for recruiters out there is you can't do a D&B on candidates. Mm-hmm. So credibility is a little more at jeopardy with candidates.
Yep.
So for our audience, what do you do to vet your candidates to, number one, know that you can trust what you're presenting to the client?
Well, one of the very first things, I'll talk about it from the perspective of we're speaking to them about a specific search. So we're actually recruiting them for a role. The first element of trust that I'm looking for, that with candidates and all of our recruiters are looking for, is that trust element, because we don't hide who the company is. And the reason that is a bigger statement than some offices, 99% of what we do is on a contingent basis. But we've been a big believer that if I can't trust you enough to tell you who the company is, and if I have a fear that you're going to go around me, so I'm going to keep that a secret, or on the flip side with a hiring manager, I'm going to blind out the resume because I don't trust you enough to send you the resume with the full information. If either of those are in play, shouldn't be working with either of them.
From the viewpoint of the client, what do you look for in establishing a relationship with a recruiting firm?
So touching back on what I said with not only having candidates that meet the technical requirements, right? So, you have a job posting, you've got everything listed out, this skill, that skill, whatever. But having a recruiter that understands your leadership style, the personalities on your team, the culture of your company, who really takes the time to listen to everything that you have to say about what that right candidate with those skills who they are going to be, that's going to be that perfect match, is so meaningful. And that saves so much time when you're, looking at a pool out there of so many people that are always clamoring to get these elite roles, right? There's, we talk a lot about there's a 4 million person shortage of people who are technically qualified to handle protecting all of our data and coming up in the future. I got an 18-year-old in the other room there. He's doing some online learning because the school's shut down right now. It was in the cybersecurity program. He's graduating this year out of high school. But there's still, when you open up a role, there's a lot of people throwing their hats in the ring. And to get that pared down to, say, a handful of candidates that are worth taking the time to really, go through that interview process, it's so really valuable to have a recruiter that understands that, whole holistic picture of what you're looking for. Because at the end of the day, when you hire someone in, it's kind of a gamble, right? It's a 50-50. You can only get so much out of a handful of interviews, maybe a panel presentation. So really matching up the right people and knowing that recruiter has taken the time to talk to that candidate, thoroughly vet them, and really get to know them. They've done that with you and they've made that connection is, just amazing. And Nick and his team are the type of firm that does that.
Well, clearly you've worked together for quite some time. And Nick, it's interesting. She talks about what I think is probably the key to success on both sides, and that is listening.
Absolutely.
And it's so hard for a salesperson, both of you know this, to shut up and listen. Nick, what do you look for in a client that tells you want to trust and work with this person and pour your resources into working with this organization?
Well, as you touched on earlier, Vince, our industry is so incredibly competitive. Somebody like Lori has recruiters calling her daily, multiple recruiters calling her daily saying, hey, I saw that you're hiring for this position, or I've got this candidate that I'm working with that I want to tell you about. And so once you have that relationship, the most important thing to me is that I've got to feel that they're invested in our processes, not as much, but at least to a point that we're invested. So when I say that, are they willing to run through candidates with you that you're bringing to the process and say, I like this about that candidate, I don't like this about this candidate, because that helps us refine our process and really laser focus on who the perfect fit is going to be. I have some clients that I've worked with in the past that'll say, hey, here's what we're working with. Here's my email address. Shoot me the resumes. I don't have time to meet with you. If I like them, I'll let you know, and then you just send resumes into this black hole and you never hear back. It's not successful. And that person is not going to be able to find the right fit for their position. That hiring manager has to identify a recruiter that they trust and that they think they can work with, and then invest some time into the process. Now, you're paying them to do the heavy lifting, to go through and interview the candidates and sell the position to them and vet out whether they're a fit. But can you invest 10 minutes a week into just running through the candidates and saying, you're missing here, you're doing great here, let's go this direction. And if you can find that, then you're going to be successful. I have never found a client that does the whole, hey, just send me the resumes and I'll get back to you when I see one I like. That never works.
What I've seen is most candidates don't do their own resumes. Most candidates have them sent out. Most resumes don't really tell the story, like job orders, printed out job orders. They don't really tell the true story. What does your team do to really dig into the reality of the candidate?
So that's a really good question. And that's something that we've also changed in the past couple of years. I think it's funny. I feel like COVID accelerated all kinds of things, but I think it accelerated kind of the AI developed resumes that, I can do a perfect resume on anything in 10 minutes, right? And so really digging past that to find out who that person is. So we also implemented on the candidate side a double conversation. The initial AE does the first CDS, covers all the details. And then the second AE has a very similar conversation. It'll be shorter, but it will either confirm or that's who they say they are, or will uncover maybe holes that either the first AE missed or that don't line up with what the person really has done or hasn't done. And so implementing that two separate, and we let them know that up front. Hey, you're going to talk with my colleague, and he's probably going to ask you some of the similar questions. We just want to make sure we're not missing anything and present your candidacy in the best light. And so that's really helped, because if they're not who they generally say they are, they're going to hang themselves pretty quick usually. And that second interaction is really has been a lifesaver for us on who we do present and who we go to bat for.
Now, do you use, in that same vein, do you use technology to fact check at all on your candidates?
No, not anything more than Google, right? And here's what technology, you're going to laugh at this because this is old training too, but good old fashioned references, right? If we are who we say we are, and we know a lot of people in the SAP space on the IT side, then any resume we get, we should know people right at that company or that used to work for them. And that's an easy thing to, hey, so-and-so has applied. Oh, that person's great. Or I don't know who that is. Right. And so, yeah, from a technology standpoint, we don't implement anything new or fancy. I'd be open to looking at anything there is, but no, honestly, not a whole lot, other than, again, on the recruitment side, we have quite often done Zoom CDSs. That's also, in fact, one of our clients suggested that does a lot of remote work. And they said, hey, we want to make sure that you talk to all of our candidates you're presenting us in, face to face. And it's been another cool thing that, man, it's amazing what you're going to cover when it's a real, like, human being on the other end of the phone and not just a phone,
Got to ask you a question, because this came up probably 10 years ago with me. With Zooming with a candidate, can the appearance of that candidate offset the power that they may have in accomplishing what they may have accomplished in their career?
Yeah. That's a good question. I think in the IT space anyway, I'll speak just from IT for a second. Almost all of our clients now are doing Zoom or some sort of video interview. There are half of them aren't even doing on-sites. And so it is, I would say 100% of them now are doing some sort of video. So it also gives us an opportunity to see, can you present yourself? Like, how much prep do we need to do on the interview for how you interact with people? We want your background to shine through, right? And some people just have trouble with that. And so being able to coach them and walk them through how to do that. Because I'd rather have them try it with me than to experiment with the client. And so, that's been beneficial on that front as well.
Boy, that's huge. It didn't even enter my mind that way, because my experience happened before Zoom and all this, and what it was I had set up a telephone interview. Telephone interview was phenomenal, and it was for an engineering position. And they met face to face. And the first words out of the hiring authority after the interview and the debrief was, have you seen this person? And I says, no, but of course, all my spidey senses start going off.
Right.
So, well, he's missing his front tooth and talks kind of strange with it, which couldn't pick up on the phone. But he was an engineer, so it didn't hurt him there. But as you were talking, of course, why wouldn't you use Zoom or some sort of face-to-face to help prepare them for their interviews and see what they're going into? That's an education for me. Thank you for that.
Trust is broken, Vince. I think I see this more now than ever. If you look at the market and you listen to what candidates and clients are saying to you, there has never been a more dangerous time between candidate and client. It's become such transactional relationship recruitment. And I think trust is at the center of everything that we do. And if we can instill that trust, because really, how long do people spend at work? Your career is a huge part of your life. You're placing your trust in us that we're going to give you a good experience, that we're going to put you through a good process, that we're going to send you to a client that is aligned to your values, your purpose, your vision, because it is so disruptive and not in a positive way to end up in a business where you're not feeling valued and you're not enjoying your time and you're not getting the best out of yourself. So I think that we have a responsibility to establish that trust and to work with people in a humane way. I'm a person that's always been propelled by my gut instinct. So how do you make sure that you're trusting your gut, which is something that is so important as recruiters and as people, but also backing it up with cold, hard facts? So I think if you asked any of our clients or our candidates how they would describe our process, the word thorough would come up quite a bit. Not boring, I hasten to say, but definitely thorough. So we will always spend a lot of time with our candidates, getting to know them and asking similar questions in different ways, not to trip them up, but to see how people respond. I think there is so much emphasis now on how much we can take out of the process. And I am all for automation, and we can talk about my views on tech till the cows come home. But I think in this instance, you can't replace the real interviewing and the skills of a recruiter with technology, because you need to be able to look someone in the eye. And I think this is our process, right? Is we have a telephone screening, I listen without looking at someone's face. I want to hear how they're saying things. I want to hear how they're talking. I want to hear when they go up, or they go down, or when they feel a bit shirty, or when they take too long to say something. If I feel there's enough there, then we'll have a second conversation, which is face-to-face, either in person or virtual. And that's when you look at someone's cues and how they respond to something. I like to think that whilst there are lots of things that I'm not very good at, reading people is sometimes something that I am quite good at. So I will, sort of invest time with people and really make sure, again, that you're looking at them and looking at their cues. If you've ever been to a negotiation training, and there's plenty within the network that I really, really love, the training is always very clear. Look at people, listen to their cues. People tell you so much when they're not saying a word. And it's really important that we watch out for those. Then I get people to do a bit of homework. If you want to make sure that someone is committed to going through this process, you need to make sure they've got skin in the game. How many times, and really how many times have we as recruiters had candidates that really aren't very dedicated to recruitment process? So they're just seeing what's out there. They'll meet with clients, they'll have a conversation. They're not looking to move. You start giving them homework, they're either going to do it or they're not. If they don't, they're not meeting my client. End of. It's a personal career assessment to make sure they're going to, tell you what they think of their career and where they want to go and what they want to do. And backing that up with, and I'm sure everyone in the network does this, references. I want to speak to people who you've worked for, who you've worked with, and someone who's worked for you. And no, I don't want a written reference. I want their phone number, because I want to hear how they describe you and how they talk about you, and whether or not someone would follow you into battle time and time again, or whether they wouldn't trust you as far as they can throw you. So there's lots of ways that we try to qualify candidates. I don't always get it right. Even with that entire process, there are some people who still fall through the cracks and are really good at selling themselves, which is when, if I'm not 100% sure, I send them to someone else. So we try and keep the recruitment process consistent. But if there's a niggle in your mind that there's something not quite right, trust yourself and get someone else to verify it.
This industry goes through cycles. And as I think all the digs go through the cycles, all the sort of recruiters go through the ups and downs in demand. The challenge right now is really on the demand side, because we've just gone through, we got through COVID and there was some overhiring. Then last year, 2023, there was the economic concerns and issues, interest rates, et cetera, wars around the world. People started to pull back. Then we get to the new year and there's some big tech layoffs. That kind of scares everybody. Hey, big tech's laying off. Why are we hiring people? Why don't we take a breather and see what we really need? And then there's talk about artificial intelligence. Wait a second, artificial intelligence, that means we're going to be out of jobs. We don't need engineers anymore. So I think everyone's taking a step back. So right now, at this moment, I think demand is lower than usual. And we've seen some of these swings happen. Now, having said that, I'm seeing an uptick. So I think that those concerns are subsiding. So my biggest challenge today is really getting the connection with clients. They're being called by a lot of other recruiters, and a lot of these other recruiters are not specializing, so they leave a bad impression. They're not well branded within their industry. And for me to reach out and do to a client, to a prospective client, certainly they're thinking, oh, another recruiter. I don't want to have that conversation. So I have to break through that. And there I have to communicate crisply about our value proposition, our specialization. All we do is this. We do it really well. And we have a process that yields the top performers. And sometimes they call back months later because they don't need someone now. They need someone in 6 months. That's just the process. That's just the way it works.
Are you finding that same challenge on the candidate side too?
Yes, because I think anytime there's some uncertainty in the market, people say, let me just stay where I'm at. Let me not rock the boat. Let me see how things play out over the next 6 months, and then maybe I'll make a change. And that's a factor. The other thing I would say is that the other trend in IT is that new salaries aren't really going up. They're like flatline. And so that makes it more difficult to attract a candidate when they're thinking, I don't want to do a lateral unless it's solving another problem, right? There may be other issues. So I think that's a factor.
We struggle with that a lot as well. There's such a dynamic change in different environments of our country, cost-wise and economy-wise and so forth. And invariably, it's somebody in a San Francisco marketplace looking for a client or a candidate, and the candidates are mostly in the Midwest. The client doesn't want to have to pay the difference. So we run into a lot of the exact same challenges. What would you tell somebody that wanted to get into the recruiting world today? This is probably, and you've experienced 15, 16 years of this, it was much different back then when you started. We've gone through a lot of hiccups and so forth. What kind of advice would you give somebody wanting to get into this business today, whether it was an owner or just an AE?
Have something you can leverage. You need something you can leverage. Certainly, I think some industry know-how is important, whether you come from manufacturing and you can help manufacturing companies hire great people, or you come from technology, or you come from healthcare, whatever that is, bring knowledge you can leverage. I think that helps. There are folks who manage around that, but I think it helps. The other thing is you have to test yourself on your tenaciousness. You have to have the willingness to make it happen no matter what. It's that idea of you get in the boat and you sail off and there's no return. You got to make it happen. And hell or high water, as they say. I think you've got to have the tenaciousness, because there's times when it's very challenging. If the market goes through this dip, you've got to muscle through it. You've got to focus on, let's develop relationships. I may not make placements for some months, but I got to develop those relationships, because when we come out of this, people will need help and they'll know that I'm here for them. And I think that passion for sticking it out is critical as well.
It's that adrenaline rush you get from being able to sit with a client And I'm speaking from a business development point of view here, and really looking at what their solution needs to be. I feel that sometimes people look at recruitment and go in and they just have this set menu of what they're going to sell. I've never looked at it that way. Everything's an adventure. I once wrote a little training course back in my MRI days about taking a client on a quest. Yeah, and that starts with questioning. If you don't understand what a client needs and what our clients really want and why you're there, you're never really gonna get any enjoyment out of creating that solution. And it's always been a solution sell for me. And when you have a really nice fine-tuned solution for a client that really likes what you're doing, and then you put it into your delivery team and they do a great job at filling it, that in mind, that is a successful campaign, and that keeps me going, and that keeps the team going. I think that's it, really. It's new markets, new ideas. I once said that every year I'll sit down with a whiteboard at the start of the year and I'll develop a new product for recruitment, because I know that the one that we had last year has either been thought of by somebody else or something else. And to stay ahead of the curve, you've got to have a new solution. And I'll always do that. And then taking that out to market and trying to put it into our existing clients or trying to win new business off it is exciting. And that keeps me going.
So wait a minute, because you're real good at talking at 30,000 feet. But what's your product that you took out for 2024?
Oh, 2024. Well, 2024 was, we took something, what we did is we created me and Mike and Wayne, and more, it was me and Mike really, we sat down and we created something called, it was basically permanent recruitment, but paid through a contractor style. And it was called Contrapert, right? So one of the things when you're selling recruitment, certainly to get it across the line to a client, is you've got to create an ROI for them. Why are they spending their money, right? And I'm a big believer in technology as well. So all of this is linked to a lot of technology. I believe the days of, yes, the phone's useful, but it's not as useful as it used to be. Back in the days, when you could get hold of someone, and especially in our marketplace, getting hold of the candidates during the day is very difficult because they're under cars. They're not allowed to use their cell phones, or don't want to use their cell phones. It can be dangerous. So a lot now of video media, a lot of video presentation, how we attract candidates, how we get them on the telephone, is really, really important to us. So we've got lots of different technology systems that we use to create, videos. Also, if you think about it, 76% of the marketplace view a potential job through a cell device. With changing in the way that things like TikTok are coming around, people have got a 30-second interest. Once that's gone, they're not interested anymore. So what we did was we actually packaged this down into something that lasts 30 seconds, where we create something that's really going to sell what we're doing, not only to clients, but mainly to candidates, because candidates are by far, the commodity, not a commodity. I never like to call someone a commodity. They're the talent that we need to be talking to, because, the work is there. It's really about finding the right fit. And this could be, at one point, 60% of the people we're placing were relocation. We were moving people from the north of the country to the south of the country, and we're selling the fact that it's warm. Get out of the Rust Belt, get out of the snow, so it was really that. So, we create digital brochures that back up the videos. We brand that with our clients. We use marketing. We use different medias to connect with candidates.